I wonder. Click. Absolutely insane. And so I'm sitting here, I'm watching it happen in real time. I'm like, they're not even trying to hide it from us anymore. Oh my god, it blows my mind, dude. So then I wake up the next morning and Facebook, gone. They deleted me completely. They were censoring me the very next day. The First Amendment is dead, you guys. The government has the technology to spread propaganda and misinformation like we've never seen in history. This is legit the Great Reset. It's happening right now. We deserve to know what's really going on. This is the Uncensored Truth. What's up, guys? It's Jeremy with the Uncensored Truth, the podcast designed to free your minds from the grips of the mainstream media by giving you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the uncensored truth. So the mainstream media is constantly creating a narrative around every single event that happens throughout history. Doesn't matter what it is. They will not just report what happens, but they will create what happens. They will tell the public what happened and whose fault it was, and for the most part, people just believe them. They just turn on the TV, they see what they see, and that's it. And I know I tell you guys this all the time, but the mainstream media lies to you over and over and over again. And so people just believe it because it becomes normal. And I, too, have to repeat myself. Otherwise, you will fall into that propaganda trap that they set for everybody. All I'm saying is do your own research, and what you will probably find out is 9 times out of 10, any event that's happened throughout history, the narrative surrounding it is probably wrong. 9/11. The JFK assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination, Malcolm X assassination, Pearl Harbor, the moon landing, COVID, January 6th, all of these things that have happened throughout history, there's usually some sort of narrative that have been spewed on every channel. I'm talking Fox, MSNBC, CNN, all of them tell the same story, kind of. They may have a few different shifting opinions on the story, but the narrative is usually the same, and most of the time it's wrong. That's why I created my channel. That's why I do what I do, is because I research these different events and I find out that it is not what we've been told. Most of the time, most of what we've heard is wrong. It's a lie. They have lied to us about our history. And 9/11 is a perfect example. The story that we've been told about what happened on 9/11 is completely false. I mean, think about it. We had 3 towers that collapsed on 9/11. Most people know about the North Tower and the South Tower, which are also known as the Twin Towers, Building 1 and Building 2, but most people don't know that there was a Building 7 Building 6 was destroyed, but Building 7 collapsed. There was a third building that collapsed, was never hit by an airplane. But they don't tell you about Building 7 because they don't want you to know about Building 7. That's more important and pretty much blows the lid off of the whole 9/11 narrative that we've been told. If you want to know what happened during the 9/11 attacks, look at these buildings. Look at the offices that were destroyed in these buildings. Look at the information that was destroyed during these attacks. We have this never-ending war on terror, which is horrible on its face, but it made the military-industrial complex trillions of dollars. The organization that's owned by the globalists, that's owned by the black nobility, the House of Bourbon, the Rothschilds bloodline, it made them trillions of dollars. It's all about money. And just like an old classic crime story, how do we find out who committed the crime? You always have to follow the money. An organized crime with crime bosses and shit, you always have to follow the money. That's how you figure out who is responsible. Nothing like this can happen. None of this can be pulled off without large amounts of money being moved around somewhere. So I guess this can somewhat be the 9/11 episode. I may not go into absolutely everything, but let's touch on some of the shit that happened during 9/11 and show you how they either lied 100% about what happened, or they just left out so much shit that you didn't even have an opportunity to gauge an accurate opinion because of the information that was missing from what you have been told for so many years. So it's crazy. It's crazy, man. It really is. But let's start from the beginning. It was September 11th, 2001. Roughly 19 box knife wielding cavemen that were directed by Captain Caveman himself on the other side of the world basically pulled off one of the most sophisticated terrorist attacks in history. Crazy thing is these cavemen and their Captain Caveman were communicating on opposite ends of the world while using early 2000s technology, cell phones, sat phones, laptops, and it went off flawlessly. It went off exactly how they planned, essentially. I mean, as far as we know, it did. These orders came from I call him Captain Caveman. It's Osama bin Laden. We were told it's Osama bin Laden, but this came from the other side of the world, deep within a cave somewhere. Probably literally in bumfuck Egypt. I don't know. It was in Afghanistan or somewhere. I don't know. He was deep within the cave somewhere, and he was barking out orders. And again, it happened flawlessly for some reason. These highly trained cavemen were able to take control of 4 commercial jets, overpowering all of the passengers on board, including some military personnel that were on board. I guess there was military men and women on board, and they overpowered them as well to take control of 4 separate airliners. But don't forget, they had these box cutters, these box knives. And with the right training, these box knives become samurai ninja swords. They're deadly weapons. Seriously, dude, it's a terrifying thing when you see a homeless man with a box knife. Anyways, after taking control of these planes, these guys were able to fly all over the U.S. off course without being intercepted by the most technologically advanced and highly trained military the world has ever seen. They didn't encounter any of our Air Force whatsoever. So not only were these cavemen highly trained in the ancient art of box cutter weaponry, but they were also the most talented pilots in history. They were able to knock over 3 buildings using just 2 planes in New York. Also able to pull off a 250-degree corkscrew dive, coming perfectly parallel with the ground, only a few feet above the ground, and smash in to the bottom floors of the Pentagon in the exact location where they happen to be doing this investigation and looking into trillions of dollars that just so happened to show up missing from the Pentagon. And it was announced just the day before from Donald Rumsfeld that this was happening. And the very next day, they just happened to destroy that office, killed 30 or so people who were in charge of investigating the trillions of dollars that came up missing. Very, very, very precise strike, if you ask me. See, most people, I mentioned this in my episode, I think just my last episode, most people don't know about the 2.3 trillion, which later on turned into about $6 to $8 trillion that had come up missing. But at the moment, it was announced by Rumsfeld that $2.3 trillion had been unaccounted for. And so they were basically in the budgeting offices of the Pentagon trying to figure out what the hell happened at the exact time that these planes smash into these people, killing them. So they weren't able to investigate anymore. And it's crazy, dude, to think, I wonder if trillions of dollars, that's a lot of money. I mean, you have no idea how often money comes up missing when it comes to the U.S. government, when it comes to our military. They have billions of dollars here and there that when they're doing their accounting is just unaccounted for, and they literally just write a number in and say, we'll worry about it later. Just think about, and this happens all the time, millions of dollars. Let's just say $10 million here and there. When we have trillions of dollars to worry about, $1 million here and there, that would change someone's life. And it happens every single day. They come up missing money. That's just how it works. And all they do is write a number in there and forget about it. They do not, if it was my business, if it was where I work or you work, and there was 100, 200, 3,000, $10,000 come up missing, you're going to lose your job. You're probably going to see a lot of jail time because of that. especially if they find out it's your fault. These people lose billions, trillions of dollars, and nothing happens. No one sees a day of jail. It's just, I mean, they literally pretty much forgot about the money that went missing because of the events that happened on 9/11. They just forgot about it. Kind of makes you wonder why or what, what happened? How was that so easily forgotten? I understand that the events that took place were insane, pretty big deal, but they still need to figure out what the fuck happened to that money. People, they have to. And the audacity of Rumsfeld to be just laughing when they're talking about it. They're talking about all this money that's missing, and they're just fucking laughing. They're joking amongst themselves about it like it's not that big of a deal. Jesus, dude. It's a huge deal. But again, like I said, most people have no idea about this money that was missing. Most people don't have no idea about Building 7 that came down, about Building 6 that was damaged to the point where everything inside pretty much was destroyed. Another thing that's pretty crazy about this whole thing is within minutes, within hours of the event taking place, the mainstream media, the FBI, the US government, the president, everybody knew who did it. They were pointing the finger at Osama bin Laden. They were saying his name on the mainstream media that very same day. That's crazy. Especially when you think about the millions of people who supposedly died during the coronavirus pandemic. And we have it narrowed down to an exact bioweapons lab that, well, not bioweapons lab, but a lab in Wuhan, China that they believe this leak came from. Nobody's investigating it. Nobody gives a shit about it. It keeps getting brought up, but there's somebody responsible for creating the coronavirus intentionally, leaking it, whether it was intentional or not. They still need to be held responsible, but this lab was being funded by the United States government. So why aren't we looking into that? If millions of people truly died during this pandemic, why aren't we looking into who's responsible for that? They're not doing anything about it. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that fucking nuts? Yet the same exact day that 9/11 happened, we've already got a name at the tip of our tongue ready to be spoken to the world. Maybe because there was a plan in place. We knew what we were going to do. Maybe because we had to go to war with Afghanistan. We needed to create this war on terror for the next 30 fucking years, however long it's been, because of money. It's always money, man. It's money, 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 money. Every single time. Whether it's COVID, 9/11, or whatever, follow the money and you're going to figure out what the fuck's going on. Check out this shirt, by the way, you guys. Truth Media 605. That's the other channel I'm going to be creating. The shirt is pink, though. It came out pink, man. The color scheme's a little off. I don't mind it, I guess, whatever. But I just like it. I made it for myself, people. Anyways, let's keep going. COVID-19. I have no idea who did it. Obviously, we have an idea of who did it, but they don't give a shit. They're not investigating it. They're not going to do anything about it. We're just going to move on and pretend it never happened. Oh, no, it happened. And we're never going to let that go. It happened in order to be able to pass ridiculous laws and change the world forever. It happened. I mean, there's no way around that. But they're not going to prosecute anybody. They're not going to find out who did it or why it happened. They're just going to make sure we know it happened. Don't ever forget about coronavirus. Don't ever forget about COVID-19. Keep taking your vaccines and change your life forever. Live this new life that we're laying out for you, but do not ask about who's responsible for this because we don't care. It's not that important. What's important is that you continue to take vaccines for the rest of your life. What's important is that you follow the path of the Great Reset that's being laid out before you. Just do what you're told and you're going to be safe. Nuts, man. They've poured billions of dollars into the this January 6th committee that's investigating the few people that broke windows, that have committed crimes on the level of like vandalism. And they refuse to lift a single finger to try and figure out who is responsible for the millions of lives that supposedly were lost because of the coronavirus. I keep saying supposedly because I don't know what happened. I'm still looking into it. I don't know how this happened. I don't know if those deaths can be directly because of the coronavirus or if it is just for us to believe that's what it's from. It could have been any illness for that matter. I'm still kind of dumbfounded at the fact that the overall deaths year after year after year are very close to the same, a little bit of growth, but not a whole lot. Understandably, there's going to be more people that died because of the fact that there was massive malpractice within the hospitals because of the way that the protocols that they took for these people that came into the hospital that were sick. They could have easily saved their lives, but they adopted these protocols that were just absolutely ridiculous. I've talked about this 100,000 times. Let's move on. I'm not going to get into it again. Sorry, but you know how I feel about that. These protocols, the people who came up with these protocols, they need to be questioned. They need to be investigated. They need to be held responsible for what they've done, because they are responsible. They have blood on their hands. The people who created this virus have blood on their hands. The person or people that leaked this virus, they have blood on their hands. And if it's all just for show, a fake movie that never really happened the way they said it did, then the people who lied to us about all of this, they have blood on their hands. Because whether coronavirus exists or it doesn't exist, people did die. And there are people responsible for that. So they need to be held accountable. Don't get me wrong. It's a good thing that they knew who did it right away. I'm talking about 9/11 here, because the investigation that took place afterwards, because there was still an investigation, the 9/11 Commission, there was a couple of them actually. The investigation that did happen afterwards, not good, man. It was on par with like the JFK assassination commission. They half-assed everything, intentionally probably, because they couldn't come out and tell you what actually happened. You and I could have done a better job by just asking simple questions. It seemed like the only people who wanted to have an investigation and find out exactly what happened on 9/11 were the crazy conspiracy theorists, just like always, because of the fact that they can see something's not right here, man. So they were the ones asking questions. They were the ones doing investigations on their own, because what we got was bullshit. They left a lot of shit out of the investigation. They didn't think it was important to find out why Building 7 collapsed without a plane hitting it. They didn't think it was important to figure out where the money came from to be able to pull off an operation like this. They said it wasn't relevant. Really? It's always relevant. It's rule number 1. Follow the fucking money, people. They didn't. Maybe because that money would have came right back to the U.S. government. They also neglected to mention the fact that there were military drills taking place at the exact moment that these hijackers were flying these planes into buildings. There was a military exercise taking place at that exact moment of planes being hijacked and flown into buildings. How convenient or how inconvenient that is. These people, when these 911 calls are coming in, when people are trying to alert the U.S. government as to what's going on, they had no idea if it was a drill or real life. They were recorded actually saying, "Is this real life?" I think is what the words were. Is this a drill or is this real life? I can't remember. During the investigation, officials from the Pentagon, FBI, CIA, Bush administration, Bush and Cheney themselves were all interviewed. They all lied about what took place on that day. Bush and Cheney were actually interviewed, and they had a closed session. Nobody was allowed to be in there. They weren't allowed to record anything, weren't allowed to write anything down. They weren't under oath. Therefore, the questioning was pointless. They didn't even look into who funded this. It had to be funded. Who did it? Most people know that destroying evidence during an investigation is against the law. You're not allowed to do it. You see a lot of jail time if you destroy evidence pertinent to an investigation. The DIA destroyed terabytes of information that was vital to this investigation. The SEC destroyed a ton of information that was vital to improving that there was insider trading going on just before these attacks happened. When they finally did do an investigation into what made World Trade Center 7 fall, they decided that it was best to keep most of that information classified. Nobody needs to know why it fell down. Why? Why not let us know what happened there, guys? They claimed it was for public safety. If we knew what happened, our lives could potentially be in danger. I believe it. Most people who know what happened during 9/11 are either extremely wealthy or dead. One of those people is the man supposedly responsible. Over a decade after this happened, they finally found him in a cave somewhere again, I think, and killed him before they could ever ask him a single question as to what happened on 9/11, who's responsible, who are the pilots, who's their, whatever. Couldn't ask him a single question or get any tiny little bit of information from him. They killed him immediately, and then they threw his body into the ocean before we ever even knew that the event took place. That itself is extremely odd. And then dozens of soldiers who were there during that raid that killed Osama bin Laden, they may or may not have had some information as to what happened on 9/11 or what happened during the killing of Osama bin Laden, but we'll never know. They're gone. Gone, man. Died. Dead. Gone. Helicopter crash in Afghanistan shortly afterwards. Nuts. Something tells me their blood is on someone's hands as well. So I mentioned earlier that there was potentially insider trading going on. The SEC just a day after 9/11 opened an investigation into what they believed was insider trading. They believed that a group of people had beforehand knowledge of these attacks before they happened because they made millions betting against these businesses and companies that were involved. And what I mean by involved is their businesses were directly affected by these attacks. They either had offices or, American Airlines, United Airlines, and then businesses that had offices inside these trade centers. And when they bet against these companies, they're called puts. They basically bet that the stock is going to drop. And if they do fall, if they do drop, they actually make money off of it. It's kind of fucked up when you think about it, but they're essentially betting on someone else's failure. It sucks. I don't think it should be illegal because of the fact that it would maybe force people to want to make someone fail, make their business fail, and it's just opening the door for fraud, man. It's opening the door for criminal activity. Some evil shit. So placing a bet like this, the risk is extremely high unless, of course, you have knowledge that something bad is going to happen to this company. One example of this would be United Airlines. There was somebody who purchased 2,000 contracts, which is 90 times more in one day than is normally purchased in a 3-week span. And they did it all in one day, the Thursday before this shit happened. And the stock dropped and made them millions of dollars. Same thing happened with American Airlines. A group bought a ton of stocks against their stock, and of course, when the markets opened again, they dropped, making them millions as well. There was several examples of this happening, dozens. I'm not even sure how many, but a lot. I think they even placed bets against tenants inside the World Trade Center, like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Boeing, Citibank, and others, I believe. It's crazy. It's an impossible coincidence, which means I believe that the coincidence is impossible. They had to have known that this shit was going to happen, especially if all these people are going to come in and place all these bets that normally don't happen. Yeah, they happen, but not in the way that it did. Not mass amounts like this just beforehand. They had to know. Otherwise, they're just throwing their fucking money away. These people knew about these attacks beforehand, and they decided to profit off of them instead of maybe saying something to somebody that could have prevented this from happening. The blood and pain and hurt that hundreds, thousands of families are feeling because of this, these people decided they're going to make money off of it instead of stop it. They should be held responsible. The people who gave them that information, that insider information, they should be held responsible. They weren't just betting against these companies that were going to fail. They also placed bets for defense contractors like Raytheon and others because they knew this was war. They knew the days, months leading up to and during the war on terror that these defense contractors were going to make a shit ton of money. And of course, their stock went up. That's one of the biggest reasons as to why I believe this happened, because of the money that got poured into Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, these defense contractors that build weapons that we use during these decades-long wars. The military-industrial complex, man. The black nobility. the bloodlines, the Rothschilds, the people that own these companies, which comes back to the same people always. State Street, BlackRock. It's the black nobility, man. It's the same people all the time. The globalists, the elite. And that's why we'll never know the truth, because the very people who are in charge of investigating this are these same people. So the SEC's conclusion, this investigation that they had into the insider trading, their conclusion is fucking bonkers. Listen to this. They said there's insufficient evidence that those who had advanced knowledge of the 9/11 attacks were conducting insider trading. The evidence was insufficient. Fuck the evidence, man. You literally said that those who had advanced knowledge of the attacks, the evidence is insufficient that they were conducting insider trading. Well, who had advanced knowledge? Who are these people? Give us their names. How did they have advanced knowledge? Who did they get this knowledge from? That's not their job. They're only supposed to investigate whether or not there was insider trading. The 9/11 Commission also conducted a similar investigation into these people that were trading, and they found out that 95% of these put options that were placed by a single investor. But they said because this person had no provable ties to Al-Qaeda, it was impossible that they could have had advanced knowledge of the attacks that took place on 9/11. Well, yeah, if you assume that Al-Qaeda was responsible for 9/11, but maybe they have ties to the people who were responsible for 9/11. Did you ever look into that? Like, who are these people? And who are their ties? Who are their personal connections? There was an investigation, an independent investigation done into the insider trading and all of this that took place. They didn't look at who these people's connections were. They literally just took statistics and math and found out that there was absolutely statistical anomalies that took place. Like, it was far too difficult to just by chance place these puts and these bets against and for these certain companies, and to have them all work out the way they did because of this terrorist attack that just randomly happened. They said statistically, it's an anomaly. Things don't happen like this. It was extremely rare, which leads them to believe that there was insider trading going on. They kept the investors' names concealed. They kept them classified. I'd like to know who these people were that were investing and who were placing these bets and these puts. Although there was dozens that were involved in all of it, they were all classified. They did have a declassified report that was released that had a couple people's names. They actually redacted their names, but based off of the report, it was very easy to figure out who these people were, and they were actually a couple. The couple's name was Mr. and Mrs. Walker. Now get this. I believe they were distant relatives of the Bush family, and his business partner, the husband's business partner, was Marvin Bush, President Bush's brother. What kind of business partner was he? Was he an investment partner? Did the Bush family make money off of this attack? According to the investigation, this couple, the Walkers, they didn't partake in insider trading because they had no connections to Al-Qaeda again. Well, let's just say Al-Qaeda is responsible for this attack. They did have business connections to the Carlyle Group that was in Washington the day of the attacks in a meeting with George H.W. Bush and the brother of Osama bin Laden at the moment of these attacks. That means they are directly connected to Al-Qaeda. If Osama bin Laden is responsible for this, they are directly connected to Al-Qaeda, to the person responsible. Why were they meeting? Why was the President of the United States' father meeting with Osama bin Laden's brother the day of the attack? Really, dude? I mean, how much of a statistical anomaly is that? These people are corrupt. These people are responsible for what happened. They know exactly what happened. They will not tell us what happened because I believe they are responsible. I believe they made millions off of it. I believe they're still making millions off of it. I believe they are descendants of the black nobility, so they're the ones who carried this up because it's them. But I do believe that the Bush family is part of these 13 bloodlines that rule the fucking world. Hell, there's probably more than 13 bloodlines now because they branched off. But my point is, I believe it was carried out by the black nobility, just like most every other crisis that happens. And I think the Bushes are responsible. I can't tell you exactly how or exactly why, but that's my opinion. It's based off of an investigation. It's based off of information. It's based off of research, statistics, data. It's not just some bullshit I'm pulling out of my ass. And most Americans actually believe that there was some sort of a conspiracy around what happened on 9/11. They do not believe the official narrative. They think that something fishy is going on. So we're not crazy. Most Americans aren't crazy. They just don't believe what they've been told. And for good reason, man. It's just nuts. I mean, the information that we get from the mainstream media, from the world, means nothing. It's no different for 9/11, coronavirus, JFK assassination, any of these big events that have happened throughout history. The narrative we're given is given to us intentionally because they want us to believe a certain thing, a certain way. You need to do your own research, otherwise you'll never ever know what's going on. Usually, these narratives can be debunked so easily. It's no different than anything else. When it comes to the coronavirus, just start bringing up data. Bring up how viruses actually work, and you can completely destroy the idea of wearing a mask or social distancing. It's going to be ineffective. Does not matter. But they just forgot about all of that shit. They forgot about all these studies that were done that proved that masks are not going to stop this shit. They wanted people masked up because of the way it looked, dude. They wanted to see all of these sheep wearing masks so they could see, look, what we're doing is working. It's just, whatever, man. Believe what you want about that. I'm just telling you, it's so easy to debunk certain shit. All you have to do is ask the right questions. When it comes to fucking race, think about racism, man. Racism. We've created this narrative that the world is extremely racist. The United States is full of racism. There's systemic racism in the police force. And that argument alone can be debunked by just having a normal conversation with somebody. When somebody brings that up to you, when you have that argument with somebody, just tell them this. More white people are killed by cops than black people. And the first thing they're going to say is, well, yeah, that's because there's more white people in the United States than there are black people. So statistically, it probably would end up that way. At that moment, the argument is over. The minute they bring up statistics, you're like, all right, fine, statistics. Let's talk about statistics because statistics debunk racism immediately. At least racism, this systemic racism that's in the police force. All you got to do at that point is just say, okay, well, black people make up 13.4 or 5. I forgot the numbers now, but they make up roughly 13.4% of the U.S. population. So if they make up 13.4% of the U.S. population, they should make up 13.4% of the people who are killed by police every year, but they do not. They make up 25% of the people who are killed by police. So why is that number higher? You have to figure that out. Well, the way you figure that out is by finding out how often they are face-to-face with a police officer. When are they going to be face-to-face with a police officer? When crimes are committed. So how often do black people commit crimes in the United States? 25%. Isn't that odd? The exact number at which they are killed by police in the United States. But they also commit 50% of the violent crimes. Crimes where a bad outcome is more likely. So if anything, that number should be a little bit higher. But no, it's not because police are systemically racist and they're killing black people on a crazy racist rage. No, it's because black people commit 25% of the crimes that are happening in the United States. So they are interacting with police at a rate of 25%. In most instances, it's higher than that. But statistically, it's debunked. It's not racism, it's math, guys. I've had this on previous episodes of mine. I've talked about this before. That lie can be debunked immediately when you just talk about it, when you bring up certain things. 9/11 can be debunked. 9/11 you could blow the whole fucking top off of it if you just bring up Building 7. Why did Building 7 come down without a single plane hitting it, guys? Now, Architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. They started their new investigation 4 or 5 years ago or whatever. They started looking into this stuff. These are the smartest people, at least smartest engineers and architects in the world, got together and decided they were going to look into this because it doesn't make any sense. They don't believe that these skyscrapers should have collapsed because of airplanes hitting them. They're designed to withstand multiple commercial airliners hitting them, yet they collapsed exactly the same way on the exact same day after just one plane crashing into them. Something that's not supposed to happen. These architects don't think that that makes any sense whatsoever. Well, what about Building 7? Why did Building 7 come down on its own footprint just like a controlled demolition would? Why did Building 7 come down and it never was hit by a fucking airplane? That doesn't make sense at all. That's why they don't talk about it in the mainstream media. That's why you never hear about Building 7. Most people do not know that another building came down during 9/11. They have no idea about Building 7. So then you need to look at what was in Building 7, what was in the Pentagon, what was in the World Trade Centers. You'll find out these buildings had to come down. And you know what? Maybe I'll have an episode where I go into detail on that because that shit is fascinating. God, I just got angry at the end, man, because this is a war on information, like I always say. People lie to you on a daily basis and you just eat it up and you form an opinion based off of that information when you shouldn't. Exercise your brain, man. Do your own research. Have your own opinion based off of the research you've done on your own, not based off of what you're told on the mainstream media. It's crazy. And people like me, people who want to tell you the truth about this shit, people who want to tell you about Building 7, we're being deplatformed every single day because of what we believe, because what we want you to at least know about. We tell you to do your own research, and that is a bad thing. We get deplatformed for it. We're looked at as crazy conspiracy theorists because we tell you to do your own research, something that should be encouraged, man, but it's not. They tell you don't do your own research. Just believe what we're telling you on the news. Anderson Cooper has your best interest at heart. Just believe what he's telling you. Believe what Don Lemon's telling you. Believe what Rachel Maddow is telling you. Believe what Tucker Carlson is telling you. And you know what? Even Tucker Carlson, Fox News, I believe they're controlled opposition, man. I believe the shit they're telling you is fake as well. I do not believe that they would be allowed to stay on cable television if they were not controlled opposition, if they were not part of the fucking problem. But they put Tucker Carlson out there to let you believe that maybe he is a good guy. I don't know. Maybe he is. Whatever. If he gets canceled and he's taken down, then maybe he was a good guy. Who knows? But the thing is it's a crazy world we live in, and this is an information war that is dangerous, man. All I can say is do your own... Don't even believe me, man. Do your own research into this stuff, and you'll see that nothing is what it seems. All right, guys. I think that is enough. Again. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Do all of the stuff I tell you to do on every single episode. Share the show if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify. Share the show, man, with your friends, family. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Give it a 5-star review. Leave a comment. Tell people what you think about the show, and just share it, man. That's the best way to support my show. Help get the truth out there. The truth is important. It really, really is. My watch has gone off several times. I hate smartwatches. Why the hell did I do this? Sorry, man. Anyways. Thanks again for watching, and until the next time, keep your eyes open, because there is some shit going on. See ya.